I've had it kind of planned, but I never got around to it. I was actually waiting for this Cobra sight to arrive so I could show you that as well. So now that's here, I thought I would actually get on and make a review of this. I'm not sure how to kind of title it, because this is a mix of a few different guns actually. It's not one that you can really get off the shelf. Pretty much everything from that end onwards is a TM AK74mn, or NM, I don't know, one way or the other. But it's their recoil shock AK. From that end, except the flash hider, that kind of short front end is from their AK102. So it's kind of a blend of two guns. I was hoping to get something that was mid-length, so short-barreled AK, but had the AK74 furniture instead of all the railed rubbish and the skeleton stock that the AK102 comes with. I kind of wanted something in between, which is why I put this together. It was bought second-hand, like a lot of my stuff, and cost me close to £400 because TM recoils don't come cheap, but it's worth it. So anyway, you can see that I've got a Cobra sight on the side here. I might remove that for the review, maybe do a separate video on that. To be honest, they're not very good. Just say that. The Chinese Cobras just aren't very good. I still use it because it looks nice. You know, it's a traditional kind of Russian one. Russian scope. The only one I'd bother putting on this. Right, so leave the OTEC for now. Anyway, as I said, this gun used to be an AK102, which means it came with a specific AK102 magazine. There is a difference. A lot of people don't know this, but between the TM AK74s and the AK102, they do actually use a different magazine. If I show you these. Right, so here is your 5.45 by 39 style AK74 magazine in black. This is a TM high cap. They are specific to the gun. Can't use standard AK mags. They're good though. They've got a big sort of lip, so they're very easy to slide in. They're good mags. Anyways, you can see they're similar from the top because they're totally compatible, but they've actually got a different curvature, and that's because this magazine here is a 5.56 NATO magazine. That all stems back to the fact that this is an AK102. The AK102 it's a Russian weapon, but it's designed for export, so the magazines use standard NATO ammunition, 223 Remington. So the magazine has slightly different curvature, it's straighter to fit that different ammo. Now, these magazines can only be found in Airsoft form with the TM AK102, and you can't actually buy them separately. So I keep this, even though it's not accurate to the gun now, just because they're quite rare really, you don't see them a whole lot. But for the purpose of this review, we'll get rid of that, and we use the standard TM AK mags that you can buy, because they're the right curvature for an AK105, which is kind of what I was going for with this gun. So anyway, it's kind of hard to do a review when it's not based on one gun, but I can still go over the features like I normally would. If we start at the back, we've got a plastic stock. Now this stock is only found on TM guns with the AK74mn. Is it MN or NM? I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but it's one or the other. And the MN just means folding stock, modern folding stock. Anyway, compared to your standard AK stock, it's really thin. I mean, it must only be an inch thick overall. That was one thing that really struck me. It's almost sort of toy-like. It's really delicate. It's got cut out on the side here, so when it folds, it goes over the rail. It's quite an interesting stock. It's made up quite thick plastics. I can't imagine it breaking. The only thing that could break maybe is the hinge, which does sometimes break. You've got a sling mount on this side, which is kind of annoying for me because being right-handed, I like to have a single point sling on this side to go around me. Now it's on this side, it kind of gets in the way because it has to fold over the stock. But that's just the original design. Slightly different size pins, so you can't swap it to the left of side of the gun, which is a bit annoying. Something you'll notice is there's a button on the back of the stock, and there's this sprung cover on the back here which puts tension on that button. You may wonder what that is for, and it's because when you press the button here, it folds on that hinge and it clicks in. Instead of just pulling it out, which you could do, you might damage it. To release it, you push that button and it unfolds. Not a whole lot of AKs come with these folding stocks, but they're quite nice. As I said, very thin, quite comfortable. They're much more comfortable than the metal folding stocks you get with like AK74Us, and the TM AK102 comes with one, so I swapped it out for one of these plastic ones. Moving up, you've got a equally delicate pistol grip. I don't have my my Cymer AK here to show you, but it's so much thicker on the Cymer gun. This is an incredibly thin grip. It feels much more like a little M4 grip, M16 grip, which is nice. I believe it's still compatible with other AK grips, so you should be able to swap it out if you didn't like it, but I like it. Quite comfortable and thin. As I said, there's your button and your hinge, which I have seen to break on quite a few of these, so don't go whack the stock against a tree, because rather than the stock break, it'll probably be the hinge. Moving up, the most important thing about these TM AKs is they are metal. A lot of people just think TM and assume they're going to be plastic, but it's a cast aluminium receiver, which is nice. You've got a steel top cover. So yeah, that is all metal. As you can see, this selector is dug into a little bit. Got Tokyo Marui markings there. So it's really nice compared to the old AKs. These are such a step forward in build quality. On this side you've got a steel scope mount. As I said, I've got my Cobra red dot there, which I might show at the end if I've got enough time, but I need to hurry up because these always go on for way too long. So that steel should fit any of your Russian optics. You've got the hook here for when your stock folds over. Selector, very nice and crisp. Something that's interesting is it doesn't actually, the clicking into place isn't actually the dimple going into those little holes. That isn't actually what makes the noise. You can actually hold the selector away from the body and it still makes the click, which means there's a little ball bearing in here somewhere that does it. Some AKs loosen up and they stop clicking into place well, but that isn't going to happen to this. As I said, you've got a steel top cover, which is nice. It's very thin, but it's still steel. Unlike most AKs, it isn't all hollow under here. Because this is a recoil gun, you've got the whole blowback mechanism. You've got the bolt here. Bolt travel is only maybe 2 inches at the most. But that doesn't matter because it kicks pretty hard. And this is all metal, the bolt cover. Top cover is steel. Still a little bit tricky to go on. There you go. A little rattly, but it's on there alright. Moving up, you've got the rear sight. The block that it sits on is metal, unlike the old ones, old TM AKs. Sight is of course adjustable. It's just a plain notch with your standard AK adjustment. Don't adjust it too much because it can flip all the way over. There's nothing stopping it doing that. So that just works perfectly fine. You've got your kind of normal AK sight picture. Kind of hard to see, but you get the idea. It's just a little notch, like your normal AK. There you go. That's about it. So nice and simple, but you can always go and add a scope like I did with that Cobra. So anyway, all metal you're looking at, except the plastic grip and stock. That's metal as well. This doesn't have realistic takedown like the VFC and Cymer AKs. You can't punch the pins out and take it apart. It's all screwed together in normal TM style, so it's not easy to take apart, but you shouldn't need to. Moving up, the standard AK102 would have plastic handguard with rails on, which I think is really ugly. Hated that, so swapped it out for AK74 furniture like the rest of it, which is just standard plastic. It's a little shiny, but doesn't look too unrealistic. Pretty solid. Something that's interesting about these AKs, they're probably the only AKs in the Airsoft world that the battery sits in the handguard portion just here, because everywhere else is taken up with a blowback except the stock, which would be too thin. The way you reveal it is to flip this up. You can then pop the top handguard off. which I think is the same on... Actually, it's different because it hasn't got the rails. I was going to say it's the same as the AK102, but it does have a different... Alright, sorry about that. I just thought I'd grab the battery whilst I was going over the handguard. You've got a tiny amount of space in here. It's ridiculous, really. But I suppose it was the only place for them to fit it in. This means you cannot use anything larger than a standard 8.4. And 8.4 will just about fit in there. Actually, on mine, it was a bit too big. I had to trim down some of the plastic casing on the battery. So yeah, it's very awkward for space. Something you might see is a little bit of red tape around. That's because this lower handguard was a bit creaky, so I lined the inside of tape, and now you don't get that anymore. Anyway, I'm using one of these little Vapex 7.4 lipos, which is small enough to fit in here comfortably. I'm going to try and do this. The gun between my shoulder, my body. So the best way to fit these in, push that down in there, try and bend the wiring into place. Oh, it's very awkward trying to get these in. You really wouldn't want to be changing these batteries in the field. Right, there you go. Okay, so we've got it all in there, and then push that back down, it's locked. Okay, so that's your battery installed. The next thing, which is probably quite important to this model, is it's got the short gas block, which you see on short AK variants like the AK102, AK105, all of those modern short variants. Even though the handguard is the same on all the models, the barrel is shorter, the gas block is different. Instead of having a gas block here and then front sight, it's all mounted into one unit. You've got a little short cleaning rod which isn't removable with the flash hider on, and it's only that long, it's only cosmetic. All metal front end. I swapped out the big disgusting sound hog kind of thing that comes with the AK102, it's this massive thing that makes it louder, with a flash hider from the TM AK74, which uses this large 22mm threading. So you can see this gun both has 22mm threading and then a 14mm right on the tip in case you wanted to add a standard silencer on it. But I just stuck to one of these. What would be realistic for an AK105, which is the kind of look I was going for with this gun, would be an AK74U kind of flash hider, the bulbous one with the two prongs. But I couldn't find one of those at the time, so I just stuck to one of these, which I don't think looks too bad. So yeah, pretty much what I've got together is an AK105 replica. The only differences are the flash hider isn't quite right, and the real AK102 doesn't have a rib. Sorry, AK105 doesn't have a rib top cover. But besides that, it's a pretty accurate replica. The magazines I use, as I said, they're very good. They've got a nice big catch, so they go in very easily. There's no way of getting them in wrong. They just slip in nice and easily. And these are 480 round high caps. Obviously, one of the most important things about these guns, which justifies their cost, is the recoil system. So you can see, on semi-automatic, you don't get a whole lot of kick. Good noise though. Travels back about 2 inches. And on full auto, even with that tiny battery, you're getting a good amount of kick with it, and a good rate of fire considering the small battery. There isn't really any good way to translate the kick into the video. Maybe if I hold it against the camera. Ah, there you go. Yeah, if I hold it against the camera, you can see how it jumps around. Which almost caused a problem with putting an optic on it. These Cobra red dots are quite cheaply made. The red dot isn't great on it, so you can see. It's kind of a blurry red dot. All of the other reticles are really silly. They're actually made up of lots of little dots, and they really don't look that good. Anyway, I'll mount it to the gun. You can see what it would kind of look like. Needed a little bit of adjusting to fit on here, but now I've got it set up. It's nice and easy. So yeah, it looks really cool. You really don't want to go stick an EOTech or something on this. You want a sort of a traditional Russian scope. and you can see what the sight picture looks like on there. It's also a good demonstration of how the recoil reacts, how the scope reacts to the recoil. It flies everywhere. I was worried this was going to fail and the battery connections would break or something, because it rattles the gun around quite a lot. Anyway, there's not a whole lot to say. Maybe last thing is that because it's a recoil, it's got a redesigned hop-up unit, which is much better than the standard AK ones, the slider ones. It gives really good range. You're looking at about 300 FPS with these, excellent performance, as you'd expect for this kind of price. I mean, really, this is an ideal assault rifle for me. It's short, quite lightweight. It's only about 3.5, maybe 3 kilos. You've got the option of folding the stock, although with an optic attached, it won't fold anymore. But so yeah, lightweight, high magazine capacity, or you could just run the low caps if you wanted. Really, it's ideal for me. If you can get the money up for one of these, I'd 100% recommend them. But they don't come cheap, so it'd be something that a lot of you probably have to save up a little bit for. But I think that just about finishes this off. They're really good quality guns, they shoot wonderfully, and as you can see, they look really cool as well. Thank you for watching, more reviews on the way.